Welcome to the Deep Dive.
Great to be here.
Today, we're unpacking a story that really stirred things up. It mixes personal ancestry claims, science, well, DNA tests anyway, and some really deep cultural definitions.
Yeah, it's quite a mix. We're focusing on the controversy around Senator Elizabeth Warren, her claims of Native American ancestry, that DNA test she released.
Right, and the reactions, especially the pretty strong statements from tribal leadership. That's key here.
Absolutely. And for our sources, we've got commentary excerpts, media reports, both the initial ones and the later corrections, which is important. And crucially, direct statements from Native American tribal leaders. So different angles.
Our goal really is to walk you through these sources, help you understand the facts, the specific numbers that came out, the critical perspectives, just to get a clear picture of what was actually going on.
Okay, let's dive in.
So the whole thing really heats up, doesn't it, with the public scrutiny Senator Warren was facing, especially President Trump using that Pocahontas nickname pretty consistently.
Right. Our sources definitely point to that as ramping up the pressure. It put her claims right under the spotlight.
And it wasn't the first time her heritage came up, right? Our sources mentioned she'd published a cookbook years before, a Cherokee Indian cookbook.
Yes, and that itself faced allegations later on, claims of plagiarism. So there was some prior context to ancestry questions.
Okay, so against that backdrop, she releases the DNA test results. What was the initial reaction? How did the media frame it at first?
Well, that's fascinating. Initially, major outlets like the Boston Globe, for instance, presented it as basically confirming her Native American ancestry. That was the headline, more or less.
Wow. So the first impression was confirmation.
Pretty much, which, shapes public understanding right off the bat.
But that understanding didn't last, did it? Because our sources highlight a pretty significant correction coming from the Globe soon after.
Exactly. The Globe issued a correction. They cited a math error, interestingly.
A math error.
Yeah. And this correction updated the estimated generational range for a potential Native American ancestor. The new estimate put it somewhere between 164th and 11,024th Native American.
Okay, wait, 164th to 11,024th. That sounds much more distant than maybe the initial reports implied. How many generations back is that?
Well, 164th suggests an ancestor maybe 6 or 7 generations ago, but 11,024th, that pushes it back to potentially 10 generations, maybe even more.
That's a huge range.
Yeah.
And a big shift from just
It's a
confirmed.
very big shift. It changes the picture quite a bit.
So how do those numbers compare to, say, the general population? Do our sources give any context there?
They do. They bring up a 2014 study. This one involved Harvard and 23andMe, the genetic testing company.
Okay.
That study found that on average, European Americans who were tested showed about 0.18% Native American ancestry.
0.18%
Yeah.
average. Okay, and Warren's results.
According to the source material we have, her results showed a range from 0.0009% up to 1.5%.
Huh. So 0.0009% is, well, that's quite low compared to the average 0.18%.
Yeah.
And 1.5% is higher, obviously.
Right. And this comparison led to some pretty pointed commentary. We have a quote here from William A. Jacobson. He's a Cornell law professor.
What did he say?
He stated, based on these results, that Warren is, quote, less Native American than the average American of European ancestry.
Wow. That's a stark takeaway, especially given the initial reporting.
Puts the numbers in a different light, certainly.
But beyond the numbers and the comparisons, maybe the most crucial voice in all this comes from the tribal nations themselves. What did they say?
This is absolutely critical. Our sources really emphasized the reaction from the Cherokee Nation leadership. They spoke out very clearly and very strongly against using the DNA test in this way.
How strongly?
They issued a statement saying, and this is a direct quote, a DNA test is useless to determine tribal citizenship. They also called her use of it inappropriate and wrong.
Useless to determine tribal citizenship. That's incredibly direct. It draws a really clear line, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Between genetics and identity, or at least citizenship.
A very firm line. They were making a fundamental distinction.
Can you elaborate on that distinction? What's the basis for it, according to the sources? Is it legal? Cultural?
Both, really. A Cherokee Nation representative explained it quite clearly. Tribal citizenship isn't based on DNA markers. It's a legal status rooted in their history, their sovereignty, and importantly, in federal treaties.
So treaties and law, not blood quantum derived from a commercial test.
Exactly. The point they stressed was that DNA might show some distant genetic link to people from long ago, maybe, but it's totally irrelevant to what being a Native American means today in the United States. That's about legal recognition, cultural affiliation, community ties.
It challenged that whole idea that your identity is just what's in your genes.
Completely. It's about nationhood, politics, culture, law things a DNA test simply cannot measure.
Okay, that's a powerful perspective.
Yeah.
Now, shifting gears a bit, this whole episode didn't just happen in a vacuum. There were political implications too, right?
Yeah.
Especially the timing.
Oh, absolutely. The timing was a major point of discussion. Our sources mention frustration among some Democrats because she released this just 22 days before the midterm elections.
Why the frustration?
The feeling was it became huge distraction. Instead of focusing on, key election goals like winning back the House, the conversation shifted to this DNA test. It gave Republicans, as one source put it, a shiny object to focus on, fundraise off of.
Right, it pulled focus at a critical time. And this ties back to her personal story too, doesn't it? The sources mention her family narrative.
Yes, they recount Warren sharing a story about her parents, how they had to elope because her father's family supposedly disapproved of him marrying someone who was, in her words, part Cherokee and part Delaware.
I remember that story being part of her narrative.
And in recounting that, the source notes she described her mother in relation to that disapproval, mentioning the family objection, was because she was perceived as having Native American heritage, calculated in the source commentary as relating to the 1500th Native American figure in that context.
Interesting how these different threads connect. Now, Warren herself addressed the idea of whether she benefited from this, right?
She did. Our sources include her statement saying she never asked for nor received any kind of benefit because of her heritage claims.
And that people who hired her said they weren't even aware of it.
That's what she stated, yes. That those involved in hiring her confirmed they didn't know about her claimed heritage at the time.
Okay. And just to round out the political theater aspect, there was that whole $1 million bet thing with President Trump. How did the sources frame the outcome of that, given everything else?
Well, given the Cherokee Nation's explicit rejection of the DNA test as a basis for citizenship or identity,
Right.
the sources basically conclude that, based on the tribe's own definition and stance, Trump wouldn't owe her the money, according to the terms he seemed to imply, which hinged on authentic proof recognized by the relevant nation.
So wrapping this all up,
Mm-hmm.
we've looked at the DNA test specifics, that initial media splash versus the corrected numbers.
A big contrast there.
And most significantly, the really clear stance from the Cherokee Nation distinguishing genetic ancestry from tribal citizenship and identity.
Yeah, this whole story really puts a spotlight on how these things intersect personal stories, public image, politics, and these very deep cultural and legal definitions of who belongs.
It definitely makes you think about the limits of DNA testing, especially when it bumps up against established tribal sovereignty and identity.
For sure. It shows how complex heritage is, particularly for Native American tribes with specific legal and historical statuses.
So thinking forward, what does this whole episode tell us about navigating identity in our current age? We have this accessible genetic testing now.
Right.
How does that scientific data square with cultural identity, with legal identity, with community recognition? Who gets to define who someone is?
That's the big question, isn't it? When you have a personal narrative, scientific data points, and official community or legal definitions, where do those lines get drawn? And, maybe more importantly, who has the authority to draw them? Is it the individual, the lab, or the community itself?
A lot to think about there. Definitely highlights the complexities beyond just the percentages.